The U.S. highway system spans 4 million miles of pavement. For most of us, it's just a way to get home. But for a select few, the road becomes a dead end. Today, we're covering the 10 most disturbing highway disappearances in American history. These cases defy logic, break hearts, and fuel nightmares. If you love deep dives into the unexplained and want to support the channel, please take a second to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. It really helps us out. Now, lock your doors, check your rearview mirror, and let's get into it. It's February 24th, 1978. Chico, California, a Friday night. Picture this. A college gymnasium packed with screaming fans, the squeak of sneakers on polished wood, the humid air thick with sweat and excitement. UC Davis just beat Chico State in basketball. The crowd is electric, and in the stands, 5 friends are celebrating like they just won the lottery. They call themselves the Boys. Their families call them that too. Ted Wire, Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, Jack Hewitt, and Gary Mathias. They're in their 20s and 30s, grown men by any measure, but they're also part of a special program for adults with intellectual disabilities. They play on a team together, the Gateway Gators. Basketball is their life, and tomorrow, they have their own game, a Special Olympics qualifier. Their uniforms are already laid out at home. Ted asked his mom to wash his white sneakers that morning. They are ready. So after the game, they're pumped. The vibe is pure joy. They pile into Jack Madruga's Pride and Joy, a 1969 Mercury Montego, turquoise and white, immaculate. Jack isn't just any driver, he's a good driver. Careful, he loves that car. He would never, ever take it somewhere risky. They stop at Bears Market in downtown Chico. Security footage, grainy, black and white, captures them buying snacks. 1 Hostess lemon pie, 1 apple pie, a Snickers bar, a Marathon bar, 2 large Pepsis, road snacks for the drive home. Normal, mundane. The cashier rings them up. They leave. The plan is simple. Drive 50 miles south on Highway 99. Straight shot, flat road, streetlights the whole way. They'll be home by midnight, tucked into bed, ready for the big game. Now, this is where it gets strange. They never make it home. Instead of driving south toward Yuba City, toward home, toward warmth, toward their families, they drive east. Not a little detour, not a wrong turn corrected 5 minutes later. They drive 70 miles in the opposite direction, climbing higher and higher into the Plumas National Forest. The road transitions from smooth asphalt to gravel to dirt packed with snow. The temperature plummets. The darkness becomes absolute. No streetlights, no moon, just the tunnel of the Montego's headlights cutting through the black. And then, at 4,400 feet elevation, on a remote mountain road near a place called Rogers Cow Camp, the car stops. Now, let's pause here. Because when the car is found 4 days later, the first thing investigators notice is what's wrong with this picture. The car isn't crashed. There's no shattered windshield, no crumpled hood. It isn't stuck in a ditch or wrapped around a tree. It's just parked, positioned on the snowy road, driver's side window rolled down, which, by the way, makes 0 sense in freezing weather, but otherwise intact. The gas tank? 1/4 full. Enough to drive back down the mountain and then some. The engine? Investigators hotwire it. It starts immediately, purrs like a kitten. The undercarriage? This is the detail that keeps me up at night. Jack Madruga drove that Mercury 70 miles up a rocky, primitive logging road in pitch darkness. There isn't a single scrape on the muffler, not a dent on the oil pan. He navigated that treacherous terrain with surgical precision, so why abandon a perfectly functioning car? 5 grown men could have pushed it out of the light snowpack in minutes. They could have turned the heater on and waited until dawn. They could have driven back down, but they didn't. They walked away, into the forest, into the snow, into the void. Now, here's where the story gets even weirder. There was a witness, sort of. Joseph Shans, a local man. He'd gotten his VW Beetle stuck on that same mountain road earlier that evening. He was waiting in his car, experiencing chest pains from a mild heart attack, no less, when he sees headlights approaching from behind. It's the Montego. Shans watches the car pull up, stop. The headlights go dark. He hears voices, multiple people. He He's in pain. He's scared, so he calls out, "Hey, I need help!" Immediately, the voices stop. Silence. The headlights don't come back on. Later, he sees flashlight beams moving around his car, circling him. But no one speaks. No one offers help. No one responds. Think about that. 5 guys who just bought snacks and won a basketball game are now skulking around a stranger's car in total silence, ignoring his cries for help. That's not lost. That's not confused. That's afraid. 4 months pass. The snow melts. Spring arrives in the Sierra Nevada. And on June 4, 1978, a Forest Service employee stumbles upon something 19 miles from where the car was found. A trailer. A Forest Service maintenance trailer, the kind used by workers in the summer. It's locked, but the window is shattered. Someone broke in. Inside, on a bed, wrapped in 8 sheets like a mummy, is the body of Ted Wire. He's emaciated, skeletal. He's lost nearly 100 pounds. His beard has grown long. Investigators estimate he lived in that trailer for 8 to 13 weeks before he died of starvation. Now, here's the nightmare. Here's the part that makes absolutely no sense. That trailer was stocked with supplies. There was a full propane tank outside. The valve just needed to be turned. Heat, instant heat. Ted was found with frostbitten feet, so severe his toes were gangrenous, but he never turned on the heater. There were matches, firewood, a working fireplace. He never lit a fire, and the food. Oh, the food. In a shed just outside the trailer, investigators found enough sea rations, military-grade food, to feed all 5 men for a year. Cans and cans and cans of it. Only a few were opened, a couple of candy bars eaten. That's it. Ted Wire starved to death surrounded by food. Why? Let's think about this logically. Ted wasn't alone, at least not initially. The bodies of Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, and Jack Hewitt were eventually found scattered in the forest between the car and the trailer, victims of hypothermia and exposure. But someone made it to that trailer with Ted. Someone broke the window. Someone tucked him into that bed with 8 sheets. That someone was almost certainly Gary Mathias. Gary's shoes, tennis shoes, were found in the trailer. But Gary himself, gone, vanished, never found. To this day, he is the only one of the 5 who remains missing. Here's the theory that haunts investigators. Gary Mathias had schizophrenia. He was on medication, stelazine and cogentine, drugs that kept his symptoms in check. But medication requires routine, stability. And that night, in the chaos and cold of the mountain, Gary didn't have his pills. Did his mental state deteriorate? Did paranoia set in? Some believe Gary, the only one with military experience, may have assumed a leadership role. Maybe he told the others not to touch the government supplies. Don't steal from the Forest Service. We'll get in trouble. And the others, Ted, Jack, Bill, Jack, trusted him, followed him, even as they froze, even as they starved. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe Gary was the only one thinking clearly. Maybe he tried to save them. He opened some cans. He tucked Ted in. And then, when it became clear Ted wasn't going to make it, Gary put on Ted's larger leather shoes, because his own feet were too swollen from frostbite, and walked out into the wilderness to get help. And he never came back. But here's the thing. Even that theory has holes. If Gary was trying to save them, why not turn on the propane? Why not build a fire? Why not eat the food? The shed was right there, 10 steps from the trailer door. And what about the car? Why did they leave the car in the first place? The accidental detour theory says they got lost, took a wrong turn, got stuck, panicked. But Jack Madruga didn't panic. He was a cautious driver. He wouldn't joyride up a mountain road in the dark, and the car wasn't stuck. 5 men could have freed it in minutes. The Sean's encounter theory suggests they saw Joseph Sean's, heard him yelling, and interpreted it as a threat. Maybe in Gary's deteriorating mental state, or in the group's collective anxiety, they thought Sean's was dangerous. So, they fled. Deeper into the forest, away from the road, away from rescue. But even if that's true, even if they ran in fear, they eventually found the trailer. They had shelter, they had food, they had time, weeks and weeks of time, and they still didn't save themselves. The Yuba County 5 case is sometimes called America's Dyatlov Pass, a reference to the 1959 incident in Russia where 9 experienced hikers died under mysterious circumstances in the Ural Mountains. But honestly, this might be stranger, because the Dyatlov Pass hikers were in the wilderness by choice. They were experienced, prepared, and even they met a fate that defies explanation. The Yuba County 5 were not wilderness experts. They were 5 friends who just wanted to watch basketball and go home. They had snacks in their pockets. They had a game the next day. They had families waiting. And somehow, they ended up 70 miles off course, 19 miles deep into a frozen forest, slowly dying in a cabin full of food they wouldn't eat. We'll never know why Jack drove up that mountain. We'll never know what the 5 of them were thinking in those final hours. We'll never know if Gary Mathias led them astray or died trying to save them. His body has never been found. All we know is this: on February 24th, 1978, 5 men left a basketball game in Chico, California. They were happy, they were excited, they bought snacks for the road, and they drove into oblivion. The forest swallowed them whole, and the mountain keeps its secrets. October 2009, Eufaula, Oklahoma. Bobby and Sherilyn Jameson are at the end of their rope. Their marriage is falling apart. Bobby's back pain, chronic, agonizing, has him popping pills and barely able to work. Sherilyn has stopped taking her lithium. She's bipolar, unmedicated, and spiraling. Their 6-year-old daughter, Madison, is caught in the middle of it all. But they have a plan, a fresh start. They're going to buy land. 40 acres in the Sans-Bois Mountains, which translates oddly enough to forest without wood. It's remote, isolated, no neighbors for miles. The plan is to live off the grid in a storage container, just the 3 of them, and their dog, Maisie, a small, scruffy white terrier they love like a second child. It sounds almost romantic, doesn't it? Escaping to the mountains, starting over. Except there's a problem. They're not running toward something, they're running away. And what they're running from isn't the repo man or angry creditors, it's demons. Let me explain. In the weeks leading up to their disappearance, the Jameson household became a house of horrors, not in the slasher movie sense, but in the slow creeping psychological sense that's somehow worse. Bobby and Sherilyn were convinced, absolutely convinced, that their home was haunted. Sherilyn claimed she saw spirits, not friendly ghosts, malevolent entities. She told friends she was being spiritually attacked. She started carrying a .22 caliber pistol everywhere, not for protection from people, for protection from them. Bobby wasn't much better. He went to a local pastor and asked him for special bullets. Bullets blessed by God, bullets that could kill demons. Think about that for a second. A grown man, a father, walking into a church and asking for ammunition to fight invisible monsters in his house. The pastor later said Bobby seemed scared. Not crazy, scared. Sherilyn went further. She started calling herself a witch. She wrote strange things on the walls of their house, graffiti about spells and curses. Investigators would later find what some called a witch's Bible among her belongings, though others said it was just a book on Wicca. But here's the thing. Whether it was real spiritual warfare or shared delusion doesn't matter. What matters is that Bobby and Sherilyn believed it. They lived in a state of siege. Their reality had fractured, and now they were taking their little girl and driving into the mountains to escape the ghosts. The last time anyone sees the Jameson family alive, they're not acting like people embarking on an exciting adventure. Their home security cameras, ironically installed because of their paranoia, capture the whole thing, and it's disturbing. For over 40 minutes, Bobby and Sherilyn load their white pickup truck, back and forth, sometimes carrying boxes, sometimes carrying nothing at all. They move like zombies, slow, trance-like. They don't speak to each other. They don't make eye contact. At one point, Sherilyn walks to the truck, stands there for a full minute staring at nothing, then walks back inside, empty-handed. This isn't packing. This is sleepwalking. Investigators who watched the footage later said it looked like people on methamphetamine. The jerky, purposeless movements, the blank stares. Latimer County, Oklahoma, had a serious meth problem in 2009. The The theory stuck. But we'll come back to that. So they load the truck, they bundle Madison into the back seat with Maisie, and they drive. Their destination, the Red Oak area of the Sans-Bois Mountains, about 30 miles from home. They're meeting a landowner to look at a 40-acre plot. They arrive. They talk to a man selling land nearby. He later tells police they seemed strange, but not in immediate danger. A little off, a little intense, but not running for their lives. They drive further up into the hills. The roads get narrower, rougher. GPS data from their truck shows them stopping, moving again, stopping again, like they're searching for something, or lost. And then, nothing. 8 days later, on October 16th, a hunter stumbles across their truck. It's locked, all 4 doors. The windows are up. It's parked on a dirt road deep in the mountains, facing downhill like they were about to leave. Inside the truck is a nightmare of contradictions. Their cell phones are there, both of them, fully charged, just sitting on the seat. Their wallets, their IDs, Madison's social security card, a GPS device which could have guided them out of those woods in minutes. And stuffed in a cloth bank bag under the driver's seat, $32,000 in cash, $32,000. But that's not the worst part. Maisie, their beloved dog, is still in the truck. She's alive, barely, emaciated, dehydrated. She's been locked inside for over a week, slowly starving to death. She's been eating her own feces and drinking condensation off the windows to survive. Sherilyn loved that dog. Bobby loved that dog. Madison loved that dog. So why did they lock Maisie inside and walk away? Okay, let's talk theories, because this case has spawned dozens of them, and almost none of them make sense when you actually think them through. Theory 1. The drug deal gone wrong. This is the most popular theory, and I get why. $32,000 in cash? In rural Oklahoma? In 2009. That screams drugs. The theory goes like this. Bobby and Sherilyn were either buying meth or selling it. They drove to the mountains to meet a dealer. Something went wrong. A fight broke out. The dealer killed them, took the drugs, and left. But here's the problem. If you're a drug dealer and you just murdered 3 people, including a 6-year-old child, why would you leave $32,000 sitting in the truck? That's not how criminals work. Money is the point of the crime. You don't kill someone over a drug deal and then forget to take the cash. That's not cold-blooded. That's nonsensical. And what about the dog? Drug dealers don't lock dogs inside trucks. They shoot them or let them run off. Locking the doors suggests whoever left that truck expected to come back or wanted it to look that way. So the drug theory? It doesn't hold water. Theory 2. Murder-suicide. This one's darker. The theory suggests that Bobby or Sherilyn, probably Sherilyn given her unmedicated bipolar disorder, decided to end it all, to save the family from the demons. They drove to the mountains, walked into the woods, and one of them killed the others before turning the gun on themselves. There's some evidence for this. A hateful, rambling 11-page letter was found in the truck, written by Sherilyn to Bobby. It was full of rage, accusations, paranoia. Their marriage was in free fall. And then there's the final photo. Investigators found it on a cell phone in the truck. It's a picture of Madison standing on a dirt road in the mountains. Her arms are crossed. She's not smiling. She's looking away from whoever is taking the photo. Some people say she looks bored. A kid tired of being dragged around by her parents. Others say she looks scared. If you believe the murder-suicide theory, that photo is the last image of a little girl who knows something terrible is about to happen. But here's the problem with this theory too. The bodies. 4 years later, 4 years, hunters find skeletal remains about 3 miles from the truck. They're face down, side by side. The bones are scattered by animals, but forensic analysis suggests Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison all died around the same time. But there's no evidence of gunshot wounds, no shattered skulls. The cause of death is officially listed as undetermined. If it was murder-suicide, where's the gun? Sherilyn's .22 pistol was never found. And why would you walk 3 miles into the wilderness to do it? Why not just stay at the truck? It doesn't add up. Theory 3. The methamphetamine psychosis. Remember that security footage? The trance-like packing? A lot of investigators think Bobby and Sherilyn were high on meth when they left home. Methamphetamine doesn't just give you energy, it warps your perception of reality. Paranoia, hallucinations, delusions of persecution. The theory goes they were tweaking. They drove to the mountains in a paranoid haze. Maybe they thought someone was following them. Maybe they saw something in the trees, something that wasn't there. They jumped out of the truck, grabbed Madison, and ran, and then they got lost. The high wore off, hypothermia set in, they collapsed in the woods and died of exposure. This theory explains the dog. In a meth-fueled panic, you're not thinking clearly. You lock the truck out of habit and run. You forget the dog. You forget the money. You forget everything except the imaginary threat chasing you. But, and this is a big but, no drugs were found in the truck. No meth, no pipes, no baggies. And because the bodies were skeletal by the time they were found, toxicology was impossible. We'll never know if they had meth in their systems, so this theory is plausible, but unprovable. Theory 4. The third party. What if someone else was there? What if Bobby and Sherilyn met someone on that mountain road? A local, a drifter, someone who saw an opportunity. Maybe they asked for help. Maybe the stranger seemed friendly at first, and then he pulled a gun. He forced them out of the truck, marched them into the woods, killed them, and then... what? Forgot to take the money, got spooked and ran? It's possible. But it requires a very specific kind of incompetent killer, someone ruthless enough to murder a family but careless enough to leave a fortune behind. And again, the dog. Why lock the dog in the truck if you're a killer? Why not just leave the doors open? None of it fits cleanly. November 2013, 4 years after the Jamison family vanished, 2 hunters are walking through the San Boys Mountains when they find something. Bones, human bones, 3 skulls lying face down in the dirt just a few miles from where the truck was found. DNA confirms it, Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison Jamison. The medical examiner rules the cause of death undetermined. There are no bullet holes, no signs of blunt force trauma. The bones are too degraded to tell us how they died. All we know is that a family of 3 walked into those mountains in October 2009 and never walked out. So what happened? Was it drugs? A deal that turned deadly, orchestrated by a dealer dumb enough to leave $32,000 on the table? Was it a shared psychosis? A couple spiraling into madness, convinced they were being hunted by demons, running into the wilderness to escape an enemy that only existed in their minds? Was it murder? A stranger on a mountain road who saw an opportunity and took it? Or was it something else entirely, something we haven't even considered? Here's what we know for sure. Bobby and Sherilyn Jamison were terrified. They believed something was after them, demons, spirits, enemies. It doesn't matter. The fear was real. They packed their truck in a trance. They drove to the most isolated place they could find. They left everything behind, their money, their phones, their dog, and they walked into the forest. The mountains swallowed them whole, and whatever they were running from, real or imagined, caught up to them. The Sans Bois Mountains keep their secrets. And the Jamison family is still out there, in a way. 3 faces in the trees, 3 ghosts on a dirt road, 3 mysteries we may never solve. January 2, 2000, Asheville, North Carolina. The new millennium has just begun. Y2K didn't end the world. Computers didn't crash. Life goes on. And for 18-year-old Zeb Quinn, life is pretty good. Zeb works at Walmart. Not glamorous, but it's steady. He's saving money. He's got plans. He's a senior in high school. Well, technically he's doing a work-study program through his ROTC. He's responsible, ambitious. The kind of kid who shows up on time, does his job, and doesn't cause trouble. He's also a car guy. Like a lot of 18-year-old boys, he's obsessed with getting a cooler ride. He's driving a white 1985 Mazda Protege, reliable but boring. What he wants is a Mitsubishi Eclipse, sleek, fast, the kind of car that turns heads. And tonight, January the 2nd, Zeb thinks he might have found one. His co-worker, Robert Jason Owens, tells him he knows a guy selling an Eclipse. Owens is 21, a few years older than Zeb, and they're friendly. Not best friends, but work buddies, the kind of guys who chat during their shift and maybe grab a burger after. So the plan is simple. They'll both get off their 9 p.m. shift at Walmart and they'll drive separately to go look at this car. Zeb will follow Owens in his Mazda. Owens will lead the way in his truck. Totally normal. Totally mundane. Zeb clocks out at 9 p.m. He heads to the parking lot. He meets up with Owens. They get in their separate vehicles. Zeb is excited. Maybe tonight he'll finally get that eclipse. And then, nothing. Zeb Quinn vanishes. Let me be clear about who Zeb was because it matters. He wasn't a runaway. He wasn't into drugs. He wasn't in trouble. He was close with his family, especially his mom, Denise. He had a younger sister. He called home regularly. He was planning to go to college. This was not a kid who would just disappear. His mom later said Zeb was careful, cautious even. He wouldn't get into a stranger's car. He wouldn't take unnecessary risks. He was the kind of kid who did everything by the book. So when he drove off into the night on January 2nd, 2000, following a coworker to look at a car, it should have been routine. But it wasn't. Here's how the night unfolds. Zeb and Owens leave the Walmart parking lot around 9:15 p.m. They're driving separately. Owens is in the lead in his truck. Zeb is behind him in the white Mazda. They're heading east toward the Biltmore Forest area. It's dark. The roads are winding. It's January, so it's cold, probably in the 40s. And then, about 15 or 20 minutes into the drive, something happens. Zeb flashes his headlights at Owens. The universal signal, "Pull over, stop, something's wrong." Owens pulls into a gas station. Zeb pulls in behind him. He gets out of the car and he's agitated, panicked even. He tells Owens he just got paged. Now remember, this is the year 2000. Cell phones exist, but not everyone has one. Zeb has a pager, and he just got a message, an urgent one. He tells Owens he needs to find a payphone, right now. So Zeb goes to the payphone at the gas station. He makes a call. Owens later says he couldn't hear what Zeb was saying, but he could see him through the glass. He was talking, listening, looking stressed. A few minutes later, Zeb comes back. And he's different. He's rattled. He tells Owens, "I can't go look at the car. I have to go. Something came up." Owens asks what's wrong. Zeb doesn't really explain. He just says he has to leave. And then, in his hurry to get back on the road, Zeb accidentally rear-ends Owens' truck. Not hard, just a light tap. He apologizes. He seems frantic. Owens later says Zeb told him, "I'll call you later," and then sped off into the night. That's the last time anyone sees Zeb Quinn alive. Now, here's where it gets weird. 2 days later, January 4th, a man calls Walmart. He says he's Zeb Quinn. He says he's sick and won't be coming into work. The manager who takes the call later tells police something chilling. That didn't sound like Zeb. The voice was wrong. The tone was off. Investigators traced the call. It came from a payphone at the Volvo plant in Asheville, the same plant where Robert Jason Owens works. When confronted, Owens admits he made the call. But he has an explanation. Zeb asked him to call in sick on his behalf. Zeb was dealing with something and needed a few days off. Okay, sure, let's say that's true. But then, why hasn't Zeb come home? Why hasn't he called his mom? Why hasn't he touched his bank account? Days pass, a week, 2 weeks. Zeb's family is frantic. They file a missing persons report. The police start investigating. And then, on January 17th, 2 weeks after Zeb disappeared, someone finds his car. The white Mazda Protege is found parked in the lot of a restaurant called Little Pig's Barbecue, just a few blocks from Mission Hospital, the hospital where Zeb's mom works as a nurse. The car is locked. There's no sign of a struggle, no blood, no damage. But when police unlock the doors and look inside, they find two things that turn this case from a missing person investigation into one of the most bizarre unsolved mysteries in American true crime. First, the puppy. Sitting in the backseat of Zeb's car, a black Labrador mix, maybe 3 months old, cute, healthy, tail wagging. It doesn't belong to Zeb. His family has never seen it before. Zeb didn't own a dog. He didn't have plans to get a dog. So who put a puppy in his car and why? Let's think about this for a second. If you're staging a crime scene, if you're trying to cover up a murder or create a distraction, why would you leave a living animal in the car? A puppy draws attention. Eventually, someone will hear it barking. Someone will notice. A puppy is not a good way to hide evidence, so what's the point? Is it a message, a taunt, a sick joke? Or, and this is darker, was the puppy meant to be found? Was someone trying to make it look like Zeb was alive and well, just out buying puppies and living his life? We don't know. The puppy was eventually adopted by one of the officers who worked the case, but its presence in that car has never been explained. And then there's the second clue, the lipstick. On the rear windshield of Zeb's Mazda, someone had drawn a pair of lips, a giant kiss mark in bright pink lipstick. Now, this is where it gets really strange. Zeb was an 18-year-old guy. He wasn't known to have a girlfriend. He wasn't the type to carry around lipstick. So who drew it, and why? The obvious theory is that someone, probably the killer, was trying to make it look like a woman was involved, like this was some kind of romantic drama, a jealous girlfriend, a lover's quarrel. But here's the problem. Zeb didn't have a girlfriend, not that anyone knew of. So the lipstick is staging, it has to be. Someone is trying to misdirect the investigation. They're trying to make police think, oh, this is a love triangle. Some girl got upset and Zeb ran off with her. But it's clumsy, amateurish, the kind of thing you see in a bad TV movie, and it raises a huge question. Why would a killer take the time to draw a kiss mark on the windshield? If you've just murdered someone, you don't stick around to play games with evidence. You get out of there, you dump the car, you disappear, unless you're Robert Jason Owens. And you're not very smart. Let's talk about Owens. From the beginning, police suspected him. He was the last person to see Zeb. He made the fake sick call to Walmart, and his story didn't add up. Owens claimed Zeb got a page from his Aunt Ina's house. Zeb's family confirmed they had an aunt named Ina, and she did live in Asheville. But here's the problem. Aunt Ina wasn't home that night. She was out to dinner with Zeb's mom. So if Aunt Ina didn't page Zeb, who did? Investigators later determined that someone had broken into Aunt Ina's house and used her phone to send the page to Zeb's pager. They paged him from a number he would recognize. A number he would trust. That's not a random act, that's premeditation. Someone lured Zeb away from Owens using a fake page. Someone who knew Zeb had a pager. Someone who knew he would pull over to check it. And the only person who fits that description is Robert Jason Owens. But Owens denied everything. He said he had no idea what happened to Zeb. He said Zeb just drove off that night and he never saw him again. And for years, there wasn't enough evidence to charge him. Now, let's apply some logic here. If Zeb was running away, if he decided to start a new life, why would he abandon his car 2 weeks later with no explanation, never access his bank account, never contact his family, leave a puppy in his car, draw lipstick on his own windshield? None of that makes sense. People who run away take their money. But they don't stage bizarre crime scenes. And if it was a random abduction, some stranger grabbed Zeb off the street, how do you explain the fake page? The sick call from Owens's workplace? The lipstick? Random abductors don't break into houses to send fake pages. They don't call your job pretending to be you. This was personal. This was planned. And all roads lead back to Robert Jason Owens. For 15 years, Zeb Quinn's case went cold. His body was never found. His family lived in agony, not knowing what happened to him. And then, in 2015, Robert Jason Owens killed again. He murdered a young couple, Christy and J.T. Codd, and dismembered their bodies. He tried to burn the remains, he was sloppy, he got caught, and while he was in custody, investigators started digging into his property. They found fabric, they found leather. They found pieces of clothing that they believed might have belonged to Zeb Quinn. In 2017, Owens was charged with Zeb's murder. He eventually pleaded guilty, not to first-degree murder, but to accessory after the fact. He claimed Zeb's death was an accident. He said they got into a fight and Zeb hit his head. He panicked. He hid the body. The courts accepted the plea. Owens got 12 years. But here's the thing. Even with a confession, the story still doesn't make sense. If it was an accident, why the elaborate setup? Why break into Aunt Ina's house to send a fake page? Why stage the car with a puppy and lipstick? And most importantly, where is Zeb's body? To this day, Owens has never revealed where he buried Zeb Quinn. Zeb's family has no grave to visit, no closure. So what really happened on January 2nd, 2000? Here's what I think. Owens lured Zeb out that night with a lie about a car for sale. There was no eclipse, there was no seller. It was all a setup. At some point, maybe at the gas station, maybe later, Owens killed Zeb. Maybe it was an accident, maybe they fought and it went too far, or maybe Owens had been planning it all along. Then Owens panicked. He needed to buy time. So he staged the scene. He called in sick for Zeb to make it look like Zeb was still alive. He parked Zeb's car 2 weeks later near the hospital, hoping it would look like Zeb had just wandered off. And the puppy, the lipstick, those were distractions, noise. Owens wanted to create a mystery, a puzzle that would send investigators chasing ghosts instead of looking at him. And for 15 years, it worked. But here's what haunts me. Even now, even with Owens behind bars, we still don't know the truth. We don't know where Zeb is. We don't know why Owens killed him. We don't know what that page said or what Zeb heard on that payphone that made him so scared. All we know is this. On January 2nd, 2000, an 18-year-old kid clocked out of his shift at Walmart, excited to go look at a car, and he drove off into the night, following a man he thought was his friend. He never came home. The puppy and the lipstick remain. Strange, inexplicable clues in a case that should have been simple. Zeb Quinn is still out there, somewhere in the mountains of North Carolina, and the mystery of what really happened that night is buried with him. September 20th, 1988, Belen, New Mexico. It's a Tuesday morning. The sky is a flawless, endless blue, the kind of blue you only get in the high desert. The air is crisp but warming up fast. By noon, it'll be hot, but right now, at 9:30 a.m., it's perfect cycling weather. This is Tara Calico's favorite time of day. Tara is 19 years old. She's a sophomore at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, majoring in psychology. She's smart, driven, and disciplined. She runs track, she plays tennis, and every single morning, she rides her bike. Not just a casual ride around the block, a serious ride, 36 miles, a loop that takes her out of Belen, south on Highway 47, and then back. Same route, same time, same routine. Tara is a creature of habit, and that's important, because it means everyone in the area knows her. The neighbors wave at her. The morning commuters recognize the girl on the neon pink Huffy. She's a fixture, a constant, and that routine, that predictability, is what makes her vulnerable. Let me paint you a picture of Highway 47. It's a 2-lane road cutting through the high desert plains of central New Mexico. Flat, open, you can see for miles in every direction. Scrubby brush, telephone poles, the occasional adobe house, not much else. On the surface, it feels safe. You're not biking through a dense forest where someone could jump out from behind a tree. You're out in the open, exposed, visible. But here's the thing about visibility. It works both ways. If you can see everything around you, that means everyone can see you. And if someone decides to follow you, to stalk you, they can do it in broad daylight, because out here there's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to run. Tara's mother, Patty Dool, understood this. Patty used to ride with Tara, but she stopped. She told Tara she felt uncomfortable. She said she felt like motorists were watching them, following them, playing games. She wasn't paranoid. She was right. Patty begged Tara to stop riding alone, or at least to carry mace, to be careful. Tara laughed it off. She was 19. She was strong. She was fit. She wasn't scared. She told her mom, "If I'm not back by noon, come looking for me." That morning, September 20th, 1988, Tara said it again. "If I'm not back by noon, Mom, come find me." And then she left. 9:30 a.m. Tara clips on her helmet, grabs her Sony Walkman, and pops in a cassette tape. The band Boston, classic rock. She's ready. She swings her leg over her neon pink Huffy bicycle and pedals out of the driveway. It's a beautiful morning, the kind of morning where you feel alive, where the rhythm of the pedals and the wind in your face makes everything feel possible. Tara heads south on Highway 47. She's wearing a bright pink tank top and shorts. She's impossible to miss, and people do see her. Multiple witnesses later tell police they saw Tara that morning. She was riding strong. She looked fine. Nothing seemed wrong. But they also saw something else. A truck, a dirty, light-colored Ford pickup, 1953 model, old, beat up, with a white camper shell on the back. And it wasn't just passing her, it was following her. Witnesses say the truck was driving slowly, matching her pace, staying just a few car lengths behind. One witness said it looked like the truck was shadowing her, hurting her. But Tara kept riding. She didn't stop. She didn't turn around. Maybe she didn't notice. Maybe she did and thought, it's fine. It's a public road. Just keep going. She pedals on. The truck follows. And then, nothing. Noon comes and goes. Tara doesn't come home. At 12:15 p.m., Patty Dole starts to worry. By 12:30, she's in her car, driving the route herself. She knows every inch of that road. She knows where Tara would be at any given time. She knows the rhythm of the ride. And as she drives south on Highway 47, scanning the side of the road, she sees something. A flash of color. Something small. Broken. She pulls over. Scattered on the shoulder of the road are pieces of Tara's Sony Walkman, smashed. The cassette tape, Boston, is unspooled, tangled in the gravel like black ribbon. But there's no bike, no Tara, no blood, no skid marks, just fragments. Evidence of violence, evidence of something. Patty knows immediately. This wasn't an accident. This was an abduction. She calls the police. The investigation begins. Police canvass the area. They interview witnesses. They search the desert. They bring in tracking dogs. But there's nothing. No body, no bike, no sign of a struggle beyond the broken Walkman. The bike is the key mystery here. Think about it. If Tara was hit by a car, if she was struck and killed in a hit and run, where's the bike? Where's the wreckage? A neon pink Huffy isn't exactly easy to hide. It's bright, it's distinctive, and yet it's never found. The only explanation is that someone took it. Someone threw it in the back of a truck, maybe that Ford pickup with the camper shell, and drove away. But why? If you accidentally hit someone, you panic. You leave the scene. You don't stop to clean up. You don't load a bike into your truck. So it wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. Someone took Tara Calico, and they took the bike to eliminate evidence. Months pass. Tara's family plasters her face on missing person posters. They offer a reward. The police follow every lead. But there's nothing. Tara Calico has vanished into thin air. And then, 9 months later, June 15th, 1989, something impossible happens. A woman walks out of a convenience store in Port St. Joe, Florida. Port St. Joe is a tiny beach town on the Gulf Coast, 1,500 miles away from Belen, New Mexico. As she walks to her car, she notices something on the ground. A photograph, a Polaroid, lying face down in a parking spot. She picks it up, flips it over, and what she sees stops her cold. Let me describe this photo to you, because it is the stuff of nightmares. The image shows two people, a teenage girl and a young boy, maybe 9 or 10 years old, lying side by side on what looks like a mattress or a pile of blankets in the back of a van. They are bound, their hands are taped, their mouths are covered with duct tape. The girl is on her side, staring directly into the camera. Her eyes are wide, not quite terrified, but aware, conscious, pleading. The boy next to her looks younger. He's lying on his back. His eyes are closed or half closed. He looks dazed, drugged maybe. And here's the detail that makes your blood run cold. Next to the girl is a book, a paperback. You can see the cover clearly in the photo. It's My Sweet Adrena by V.C. Andrews, Tara Calico's favorite author. Now, let's pause here, because this is where the case goes from tragic to utterly surreal. The woman who found the Polaroid turns it over to police. They send it to the FBI. The FBI analyzes it. They compare it to photos of Tara, and they say, inconclusive. They can't definitively say the girl in the photo is Tara Calico. But Scotland Yard, yes, Scotland Yard, because they got involved at the family's request, they analyze the photo, and they say it is Tara. Los Alamos National Laboratory also examines it. They say it's not her. So, who's right? Tara's mother, Patty, looks at the photo, and without hesitation she says, "That is my daughter." She points to a scar on the girl's leg. Tara had an identical scar from a car accident when she was younger. She points to the book. V.C. Andrews was Tara's obsession. She read every book. She carried them everywhere, and she points to the look in the girl's eyes. A mother knows her child, but the authorities won't commit. The photo remains unconfirmed. Okay, let's apply some logic here. If this photo is real, if it really is Tara Calico, then someone held her captive for 9 months. 9 months. From September 1988 to June 1989. That's not a quick abduction and murder. That's long-term captivity. And then someone, either Tara herself or her captor, dropped this photo in a parking lot in Florida. Why? Here are the possibilities. 1. It was an accident. The captor or captors were traveling. They stopped at the convenience store. The photo fell out of their vehicle. They didn't notice, but that doesn't make sense. Who keeps a Polaroid of their kidnapped victims just lying around? You'd hide it. You'd destroy it. You wouldn't carry it loose in your pocket. 2. It was intentional. Someone wanted the photo to be found. Maybe Tara herself. Maybe she dropped it during a moment of opportunity, a bathroom stop, a gas station, hoping someone would see it and call the police. That's possible. But if that's true, it means Tara was alive in June 1989. And if she was alive then, where is she now? 3. It's not Tara. The photo is real, but it's a different crime, a different girl, a different abduction. But then how do you explain the scar, the book, the resemblance? The odds of a random girl in a random photo having the same scar and the same taste in books as Tara Calico are astronomical. And then there's the boy in the photo. Initially, investigators thought it might be Michael Henley, a 9-year-old boy who went missing from New Mexico around the same time as Tara. But in 1990, Michael's body was found in the Zuni Mountains. He died of exposure. He was never kidnapped. So the boy in the Polaroid is not Michael Henley, which means there's another victim, another missing child, and we don't even know who he is. So what happened to Tara Calico? In 2023, 35 years after her disappearance, the Valencia County Sheriff made a statement. He said they've identified the suspects, local men, teenagers at the time. They were in that Ford pickup truck. The theory is simple. They were harassing her, following her. Maybe they meant to scare her. Maybe they meant to do worse. They hit her with the truck, or they grabbed her. And then they panicked. They killed her. They buried her somewhere in the desert, and they've kept quiet for 35 years. But here's the problem with that theory. If Tara died on September 20th, 1988, if she was killed that morning and buried in the desert, then who is the girl in the Polaroid? Because that photo was taken 9 months later. The sheriff's theory only works if you believe the Polaroid is a hoax, or a coincidence, or a completely unrelated crime. But Patty Doole doesn't believe that. And honestly, neither do I. Here's what I think happened. I think Tara was grabbed off that road by someone in that Ford pickup. Maybe it was local boys. Maybe it was a stranger passing through. We may never know. I think she was held captive for months, maybe years, and that Polaroid, that horrifying, grainy image, was taken during that time. I think someone dropped it in that Florida parking lot, either by accident or as a message, a taunt, a breadcrumb, and I think Tara Calico is still out there. Not alive. I wish I could say that, but statistically, it's unlikely. But her body is somewhere, waiting to be found, and whoever took her, whoever bound her wrists and taped her mouth and took that photo, they're still out there too. Maybe they're old now. Maybe they've convinced themselves it was a mistake, a moment of madness, or maybe they're still driving down desert highways looking for the next girl on a bike. Tara Calico left her house on September 20th, 1988, with a warning to her mother. "If I'm not back by noon, come find me." She never came back. And 36 years later, we're still looking. The neon pink Huffy was never found. The body was never found. All we have is a photograph, a Polaroid of a girl with terrified eyes, lying bound in the back of a van, staring into the camera as if to say, "Please, someone, help me." But no one did, and the desert keeps its secrets. May 14th, 2008, Marshall, Minnesota. It's the end of the spring semester at Minnesota West Community and Technical College. Finals are over, summer's coming, and for 19-year-old Brandon Swanson, that means one thing: celebration. Brandon's a good kid, the kind of kid parents brag about. He's studying wind energy technology, a field with a future. He's responsible. He doesn't get into trouble. He's close with his family. He calls home regularly. Tonight he's at a party in Lind, a small town about 7 miles southwest of Marshall. It's a typical college party: music, friends, a few drinks, nothing crazy. Around 1 a.m., Brandon decides to head home. He's got his white Chevy Lumina. The plan is simple: drive the back roads to Marshall, avoid the main highways, stay off the radar. It's a smart move. Rural Minnesota cops love to set up DUI checkpoints on nights like this. So Brandon gets in his car. He pulls out of the driveway. He heads east toward Marshall. And somewhere in the darkness, on a gravel road he thinks he knows, he makes a mistake. Let me paint you a picture of rural Minnesota in the middle of the night. It's dark. Not city dark. Not, oh, the streetlight is out dark. This is absolute darkness. The kind where you can't see your hand in front of your face if you step outside the beam of your headlights. The roads are a maze, gravel, narrow, unmarked. Every intersection looks the same. Every field stretches on forever. There are no landmarks, no signs, just dirt roads and corn. And on this particular night, May 14th, 2008, there's no moon. Brandon is driving carefully. He's being cautious, but at some point, he misjudges a turn. The shoulder of the road slopes sharply. Before he realizes what's happening, the Lumina slides into a ditch. Not a crash, not a rollover, just a gentle slide. The car is high-centered. The undercarriage is resting on the embankment, wheels spinning in the air. Brandon is fine. Not hurt, not drunk, just stuck. He gets out of the car, he looks around. He tries to push it. No luck. The car isn't going anywhere. So he does what any responsible 19-year-old would do. He calls his parents. 1:54 a.m. Brandon's phone rings in his parents' house. His dad, Brian Swanson, picks up. Brandon explains the situation. He's calm, matter of fact. "Dad, I went into the ditch. The car is stuck. Can you come get me?" "Where are you?" "I'm near Lind, on the gravel roads just outside of town." Brian knows the area. Lind is small, population 400. If Brandon is near Lind, this is a 15-minute drive. Easy. Brian and his wife, Annette, get dressed. They get in the car. They drive to Lind. And they stay on the phone with Brandon the whole time. Brandon is standing outside his car, holding his cell phone, waiting. Brian and Annette drive through Lind. They scan the roads. They flash their headlights. "Do you see us?" Brian asks. "No," Brandon says. "I don't see anything." Brian flashes again. Nothing. "Okay," Brian says. "Flash your headlights. We'll look for you." Brandon flashes his lights. Brian and Annette stare into the darkness. They see nothing. Now, this is where it gets strange. They are both looking for each other. They are both flashing their lights. They are on the phone with each other. And yet, somehow, they can't see each other. How is that possible? The answer is simple, but horrifying. Brandon isn't near Lind. He thinks he's near Lind. He's convinced he's near Lind. But he's wrong. In the pitch-black darkness of rural Minnesota, with no landmarks and no GPS, Brandon has no idea where he actually is. After 30 minutes of searching, Brian and Annette are frustrated. Brandon is frustrated. "This doesn't make sense," Brandon says. "I should be able to see you." And then Brandon makes a decision. "Okay," he says. "I see lights in the distance. I think that's Lind. I'm going to walk toward the lights. Meet me at the parking lot of Brandon's, a local bar and nightclub." Brian agrees. "Okay, we'll meet you there." And Brandon starts walking. Now, let me be very clear about what happens next, because this is the part that makes Brandon Swanson's case one of the most baffling disappearances in modern history. Brandon stays on the phone with his dad for 47 minutes. 47 minutes. He's walking, he's talking, he's describing what he sees. "I'm crossing a fence. I'm in a field. I hear water. I'm on gravel now. He sounds lucid. He's not slurring. He's not panicking. He's just walking, trying to get to town. Brian is listening, driving slowly through the streets of Lind, waiting to spot his son. And then, at 2:31 a.m., Brandon says something. Mid-sentence, mid-step. He shouts, "Oh, shit!" And then, silence. Let's pause here, because this moment, this second, is the pivot point of the entire case. Brandon doesn't scream. He doesn't yell for help. He doesn't cry out in pain. He just says, "Oh, shit." It's the kind of thing you say when you trip, when you step in a hole, when you realize you've made a mistake. And then, nothing. The line doesn't go dead. It doesn't disconnect. Brian is still holding the phone. He can hear silence, just the faint sound of wind, or maybe static, or maybe nothing. "Brandon!" Brian shouts into the phone. "Brandon, are you okay? Brandon!" Nothing. Brian hangs up. He calls back immediately. The phone rings. It rings and rings and rings. No answer. He calls again. Again. The phone keeps ringing, which means it's still on. It's still charged. It's still out there somewhere. But Brandon doesn't pick up. At first, Brian and Annette think maybe the phone died. Maybe Brandon dropped it. Maybe he's walking back to the car. They drive around all night, searching, calling, flashing their lights. Nothing. By dawn, they're frantic. They call the police. And that's when the police find the car. Brandon's white Chevy Lumina is stuck in a ditch, just like he said. But it's not near Lind. It's near a tiny town called Taunton, 25 miles northwest of Lind, in the opposite direction. Let that sink in for a second. Brandon thought he was near Lind. He was absolutely convinced. He gave his parents specific directions. He described the area, and he was wrong. By 25 miles. How does that happen? Here's the thing about the Minnesota plains at night. Everything looks the same. Gravel roads, flat fields, distant lights on the horizon. Brandon saw lights. He thought it was Lind, a town he knew, a town with a bar and streetlights and people. But it wasn't Lind. It was probably the grain elevator in Taunton, or Porter, or just a farmhouse in the distance. He walked toward those lights for 47 minutes, through fields, over fences, across terrain he didn't recognize, and somewhere along the way, he stepped wrong, or fell, or vanished. Now, let's talk about that "oh shit" moment, because it's the key to everything. Investigators believe Brandon was walking near the Yellow Medicine River. Search dogs later tracked his scent to the riverbank just a few miles from where his car was found. The river was high that night, spring runoff, the current was fast, the water was cold. The theory is simple. Brandon was walking in the dark. He didn't realize he was near the river. He stepped off the bank, maybe thinking it was just a ditch or a slope, and fell in. Oh shit, the water was too cold. The current was too strong. He was swept away before he could even scream. His phone, maybe it landed on the bank, or maybe it was in his pocket and the fall knocked the wind out of him. Either way, he couldn't answer. And the river carried him downstream, his body snagged on debris, buried in silt, hidden in the dense vegetation along the banks. The Yellow Medicine River was searched extensively. Divers, sonar, cadaver dogs. They found nothing. But here's the thing about rivers, they keep secrets, especially murky, winding, vegetation-choked rivers in rural farmland. A body can stay hidden for years, decades even. But not everyone believes the river theory. Because here's the logic gap. If Brandon fell into the river, why didn't the phone splash? Why didn't he scream? Oh shit is what you say when you step in a hole, not when you plunge into freezing water. And why didn't the phone die immediately? Water kills phones, but Brandon's phone kept ringing for hours, for days, according to some reports. So maybe he didn't fall into the river. Maybe he fell into something else. There's a darker theory, one that keeps rural Minnesotans awake at night. The area where Brandon was walking is farmland, and farmland is full of hidden dangers. Old cisterns, abandoned wells, drainage pipes, and something called a grain bin. Grain bins are massive cylindrical structures used to store corn and soybeans. But sometimes, especially on old abandoned farms, there are open pits, augers, machinery. If you're walking through a field in the pitch dark and you step into one of these, well, you disappear. Instantly, completely. You don't scream. You don't have time. You just drop into the void. And if you fall into a grain bin filled with old corn or soybeans, you sink. The grain swallows you like quicksand, you suffocate, and your body stays there, buried under tons of grain until someone, someday, empties the bin, or never. This theory explains the, oh shit. It explains the sudden silence. It explains why no body was ever found. But it's terrifying, because it means Brandon is still out there, in a field, in a hole, waiting. Brandon Swanson has been missing for over 16 years. His case led to the creation of Brandon's Law in Minnesota, a law that allows police to immediately begin searching for missing adults, not just children. Because before Brandon, if you were over 18 and went missing, police had to wait. Assume you left voluntarily. But Brandon didn't leave voluntarily. He was on the phone with his dad. He was walking toward what he thought was safety. He was trying to get home. And then he was gone. Here's what haunts me about this case. Brandon's parents did everything right. They answered the phone. They drove out to help him. They stayed on the line. They listened. And it didn't matter, because sometimes, no matter how careful you are, no matter how connected you are, the world just swallows you up. Brandon Swanson was on the phone for 47 minutes. He was talking, he was walking, he was there, and then he wasn't. His dad heard it happen. He heard the, oh shit. He heard the silence. And for the rest of his life, Brian Swanson will wonder, what did Brandon see in that last second? What did he step into? Was it water? Was it a hole? Was it something worse? We'll never know. Because the fields of Minnesota are vast. The river runs deep. And the darkness, the kind of darkness Brandon walked into that night, is absolute. Somewhere out there, in a ditch or a river or a field, Brandon Swanson is waiting to be found. His phone rang for days after he vanished, over and over, unanswered, a signal in the void, a boy calling out to a world that couldn't hear him anymore. And all we're left with is the echo of two words, oh shit, and then nothing. April 20, 1989, Highway 200 near Circle, Montana. Let me tell you what it's like out there. Montana calls itself Big Sky Country, and that's not marketing, it's a warning. The sky is so vast, so overwhelming that it makes you feel small, insignificant, and at night, the sky swallows everything. Highway 200 cuts through the eastern plains of Montana. It's a 2-lane ribbon of asphalt stretching through an ocean of grass and wheat fields. There are no streetlights, no gas stations for 50 miles, no towns, just darkness, the kind of darkness that city people don't understand, the kind where your car headlights are the only light in the universe, where if you turn them off, you disappear. And on the night of April 20th, 1989, Patricia Meehan drove into that darkness. Patricia Meehan was 37 years old. She wasn't from Montana originally. She'd grown up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Urban, dense, the opposite of where she ended up. But Patricia had made a choice. She'd left the city behind. She'd moved to Bozeman, Montana in 1985 to work as a ranch hand. She loved animals. She loved the open spaces. She wanted a simpler life. But by 1989, something had changed. Her family noticed it. She was acting strange, paranoid, withdrawn. She'd been studying early childhood development in Oklahoma City before the move, but she'd dropped out, drifted west, and now she seemed lost. A psychologist who later reviewed her case said she was going through a very difficult time in her life. What does that mean? Depression? A breakdown? We don't know. What we do know is that on April 20th, 1989, Patricia got in her car and started driving. East, away from Bozeman, away from the mountains, toward the flat, empty plains. She was 400 miles from home when she crashed. It's around 8:15 p.m., pitch black. The temperature is dropping. Carol Heights is driving westbound on Highway 200 with her friend Peggy Burr and Peggy's father. They're heading home after a day out. The road is empty, quiet. Just the hum of the engine and the glow of the headlights cutting through the void. And then, out of nowhere, they see headlights coming toward them, not in the distance, right in front of them, in their lane. A car is driving eastbound, on the westbound side of the highway. Carol screams. She jerks the wheel. She swerves into the other lane, the correct lane, barely avoiding a head-on collision. Her heart is pounding. She looks in the rearview mirror. The other car, a sedan, keeps going. Still on the wrong side, still driving like nothing is wrong. And then she hears it, the crash. The sedan, Patricia's car, slams head-on into the vehicle behind Carol. Peggy Burr's father is driving. He doesn't have time to react. Metal screams, glass shatters, the impact spins both cars, and then silence. That heavy, suffocating silence that comes after violence, the kind where your ears are ringing and you can't quite process what just happened. Carol pulls over. She's shaking. She gets out of the car. Peggy and her father are dazed but okay. Their car is wrecked, but they're alive. And then Carol sees her, Patricia Meehan. She's getting out of her car, slowly, calmly. She's not bleeding, she's not limping, she's just standing there. Carol expects her to run over, to apologize, to check if they're okay, to scream, to cry, to do something. But Patricia doesn't do any of that. She walks toward Carol, and she stares. Let me describe this stare, because it's the detail that haunts everyone who hears this story. Patricia doesn't look at Carol. She looks through her. Her eyes are glassy, empty, like she's seeing something that isn't there. Or like she's not seeing anything at all. Carol later describes it as a 1,000-yard stare. The kind soldiers get after trauma. The kind that says the person you're looking at is no longer really present. Patricia doesn't speak. She doesn't blink. She just stands there, staring. And then, without a word, she turns around. She walks to a barbed wire fence by the side of the road. She climbs over it, carefully, deliberately, like she has all the time in the world. And she walks into the field. Carol is frozen. She doesn't understand what she just saw. Is Patricia in shock? Is she concussed? Should she follow her? But before Carol can decide, Patricia stops. About 20 yards into the field, she just stands there, motionless, watching the crash site, watching the people, watching nothing. She stands there for what feels like an eternity. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10, and then she turns, and she walks deeper into the field, into the darkness, and she's gone. Okay, let's stop and think about this, because nothing about what just happened makes sense. First, Patricia caused a head-on collision, a violent, terrifying crash, the kind that should leave you disoriented, injured, panicked. But she's not panicked. She's calm, too calm. She walks over to the victims, the people she just hit, and she doesn't say a word. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't ask if they're okay. She just stares. And then she leaves, not in a rush, not fleeing the scene like a hit-and-run driver. She walks, slowly, deliberately, like she's taking an evening stroll. Why? Another driver stops. They call the police. Within 30 minutes, officers arrive on the scene. They interview Carol Heights. She tells them about the stair, the fence, the field. The officers immediately organize a search. They bring flashlights. They fan out into the field. And here's the thing about the plains of eastern Montana, there's nowhere to hide. It's flat, wide open. You can see for miles in every direction. There are no trees, no buildings, no ravines, just grass. And yet, Patricia Meehan is gone. The officers search all night. At dawn, they bring in search planes. They fly low over the area, scanning the ground. Nothing, no body, no footprints, the ground was hard, no sign of Patricia. 3 days later, they find her footprints, faint tracks in the dirt heading away from the crash site. They follow them for 3/4 of a mile, and then the tracks just stop. Not fade, not disappear into rough terrain. They stop. In the middle of an open field, like she was lifted into the air, or like she backtracked perfectly over her own steps, or like she vanished. Now, let's talk theories, because this case has baffled investigators for 35 years. Theory 1, traumatic brain injury and amnesia. This is the leading theory, and honestly, it makes the most sense. The crash caused a concussion. Patricia's brain was scrambled. She entered a dissociative state, what psychologists call a fugue. In a fugue state, You lose your sense of identity. You don't know who you are. You don't know where you are. You act on autopilot. The stare Carol described, that's dissociation. Patricia was looking at Carol, but she wasn't seeing her. Her brain had checked out, and when she walked into that field, she wasn't trying to escape. She was just walking. Because that's what her broken brain told her to do. The theory goes, Patricia wandered out of the field. She reached a road. A truck driver picked her up. She had no ID, no memory. She drifted. And here's the thing, there were sightings. Over the next few years, people reported seeing a woman matching Patricia's description at truck stops, at diners in the Pacific Northwest. She was calling herself different names. She seemed confused, lost. One reported sighting had her working at a homeless shelter, unable to remember her past. But none of these sightings were ever confirmed. No one took a photo. No one called the police in time. Patricia Meehan became a ghost, a woman without a name, drifting through the country, unaware that thousands of miles away, her family was searching for her. Theory 2. The hay truck. A witness reported seeing a hay truck parked about half a mile from the crash site that night. The theory, Patricia, disoriented and wandering, stumbled upon the truck. She climbed into the back, into the hay, either to hide or to rest. The driver, unaware, got in and drove away. Hours later, Patricia either woke up hundreds of miles away, or, if the driver discovered her, something darker happened. This theory explains the vanishing footprints. It explains how she got out of that field. But it requires a massive coincidence. What are the odds that a hay truck was parked in exactly the right spot at exactly the right time? Still, it's possible. Theory 3. Suicide by exposure. Some investigators believe Patricia intended to die that night. The head-on collision, not an accident, not confusion, deliberate. Maybe she was trying to kill herself in the crash. When she survived, she walked into the wilderness to finish the job. The Montana plains in April are cold. Hypothermia would set in within hours. But here's the problem. If she died of exposure near the crash site, search teams should have found her body. Dogs tracked her scent. Planes flew overhead. Unless she walked much farther than anyone thought possible. Miles and miles, until she collapsed in some hidden ravine or riverbed. But the track stopped after 3/4 of a mile. So either she backtracked, which seems impossible in the dark, or she got into a vehicle. And then there's the theory no one wants to say out loud. What if someone picked her up? Not a good Samaritan? Someone else. A predator? A killer? Someone driving that empty highway in the middle of the night, looking for an opportunity. Patricia, injured and disoriented, flags them down. She gets in the car, and she's never seen again. This theory explains everything. The vanishing footprints, the lack of a body, the sightings that led nowhere. But it requires Patricia to have been incredibly unlucky. To have walked into that field, survived a head-on crash, and then immediately encountered the one person who would hurt her. It's possible, but it's dark. Patricia Meehan has been missing for 35 years. Her family held out hope for decades. They followed every lead, every sighting, every tip. But Patricia never came home. In 1997, she was declared legally dead. But no body has ever been found. Here's what haunts me about this case. Patricia survived the crash. She walked away. She was alive. Carol Heights saw her, watched her climb that fence, watched her stand in the field, silent and still, like a ghost already. And then Patricia turned, and she walked into the darkness, and the darkness kept her. I think about Carol Heights a lot, about what it must have been like to see that stare, to watch a woman walk calmly into oblivion and know that something was terribly wrong. But what could she do? Chase her into the field, tackle her, force her to stay? Patricia made a choice that night. Whether it was a choice made by a broken brain or a conscious decision to disappear, we'll never know. But she walked into that field, and she kept walking. Maybe she's still out there, somewhere, living under a different name, working a quiet job in a small town, with no memory of Pittsburgh, no memory of Bozeman, no memory of the crash. Or maybe she collapsed in a ditch 10 miles from Highway 200 and her bones are still lying there, hidden by tall grass and thyme. Or maybe, just maybe, she got into a truck that night, and whoever was driving took her far, far away. All we know for sure is this. On April 20, 1989, Patricia Meehan drove on the wrong side of Highway 200. She crashed head-on into another car. She climbed out of the wreckage. She stared at the people she'd hurt with empty, glassy eyes. And then she walked into the Montana night. The plains are vast, the sky is endless, and the darkness, once it takes you, doesn't let go. Patricia Meehan walked into that darkness, and she never walked out. March 2000. Raleigh, North Carolina. Leah Roberts is 23 years old, and her world has collapsed in the span of just a few years. She's lost both of her parents. Her father died when she was still a teenager. Her mother passed away more recently. And Leah, smart, creative, introspective Leah, is drowning in grief. She's a senior at North Carolina State University, studying to be a therapist. She's good at it. She understands pain. She understands loss. But understanding something doesn't make it hurt less. And so, in early March 2000, Leah makes a decision. She's going to leave. She's going to hit the road. She's going to find something, meaning peace, herself. She doesn't know exactly what, but she knows she can't stay in Raleigh anymore. Leah is obsessed with the Beat Generation, Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, the idea of radical freedom, of shedding the weight of conventional life and just going. Her favorite book is The Dharma Bums, Kerouac's semi-autobiographical novel about hiking in the Cascade Mountains, meditating on mountaintops, and finding spiritual clarity in the wilderness. There's a specific place in the book that haunts her. Desolation Peak. A fire lookout tower in the North Cascades of Washington State, where Kerouac spent a summer in solitude, staring at the mountains, contemplating existence. Leah wants to see it. She wants to feel what Kerouac felt. She wants to stand on that peak and maybe, just maybe, find some kind of answer to the question, what now? So she packs. She loads her white 1993 Jeep Cherokee with everything she owns: clothes, books, her guitar, a photo of her parents, her mother's diamond engagement ring, a precious keepsake she would never willingly leave behind. And she brings her kitten. A small tabby named Bee. Because if you're going to run away from your life, you should at least bring something you love. On March 9, 2000, Leah leaves Raleigh. She doesn't tell her friends, she doesn't tell her family, she just leaves a note. Have faith in me. And she drives west. It's a 3,000-mile journey. Raleigh to the Pacific Northwest. She's crossing the entire country. She stops in Oklahoma, then Colorado, then Oregon. She's not rushing. She's soaking it in. The open road, the mountains, the sky. On March 13th, she crosses into Washington State. She stops at a gas station in Brooks, Oregon. Security footage captures her peering out the window of the convenience store, looking nervous, looking over her shoulder, like she thinks someone is following her, or maybe she's just tired, paranoid from too many miles and too little sleep. She drives north. She arrives in Bellingham, Washington, a college town near the Canadian border, tucked between the ocean and the mountains. At 2:10 p.m., she buys a ticket to see American Beauty at the Belly's Fair Mall. It's a strange, haunting film about suburban despair and the search for meaning. It feels like the perfect movie for someone like Leah. That ticket stub is the last confirmed trace of her. 5 days later, March 18, 2000, two joggers are running on a remote stretch of road near the Mount Baker Highway, deep in the Cascade Mountains. They notice something. A piece of clothing snagged on a tree branch, fluttering in the wind. They stop. They look closer. And down a steep embankment, 40 feet below the road, they see a vehicle. A white Jeep Cherokee. Leah's Jeep. It's wrecked. The front end is smashed. It's lying at the bottom of a ravine, half hidden by dense forest and underbrush. The joggers call 911. Police arrive. They carefully make their way down the embankment. It's steep, treacherous. The Jeep is in bad shape. They expect to find a body A young woman who lost control of her vehicle went off the road and died in the crash. But when they opened the doors, there's no body, no blood, no sign of a driver, just stuff. Let me describe what they find inside that Jeep, because it's important. Her clothes, neatly folded in bags, her guitar, untouched, her mother's diamond engagement ring, still there, in the car, a box of cat food, but no cat. And here's the really strange part. Scattered throughout the Jeep are approximately $2,500 in cash, just sitting there, in plain sight. If this was a robbery, the money would be gone. If this was a carjacking, the ring would be gone. So what happened? The police start piecing together a timeline. Leah left Bellingham on March 13th after seeing American Beauty. She drove east, toward the mountains, toward Desolation Peak. The Mount Baker Highway is a winding two-lane road that climbs into the Cascades. It's remote, beautiful, and in March, dangerous. Snow, ice, narrow shoulders. At some point, Leah turned onto Canyon Creek Road, a rough, unpaved logging road. It's not a road you take by accident. It's a road you take if you're specifically looking for something, or if you're lost and following bad directions. And somewhere on that road, the Jeep went off the embankment. But here's the thing. The crash didn't kill her. We know this because of what investigators found next. Now, this is where it gets strange. When investigators examined the interior of the Jeep, they noticed something that didn't make sense. Blankets had been hung over the windows from the inside, not thrown haphazardly, not tangled in the wreckage, deliberately hung, like curtains. Why? Because after the crash, Leah, or someone, was living in that Jeep. Think about it. If you crash your car and you're injured, you either 1. Crawl out and try to get help. 2. Stay in the car and wait for rescue. 3. Die. You don't hang blankets over the windows to create privacy, unless you're planning to stay there, unless you're hiding. And then there's the wire. Years after the initial investigation, a mechanic examined the Jeep more closely, and he found something disturbing. The starter relay wire had been cut, not torn, not damaged by the crash. Cut. This wire controls whether the car can start. If you cut it or bypass it, you can manipulate the vehicle. You can make it accelerate without pressing the gas pedal. You can send it rolling forward without a driver inside. Do you see where this is going? The theory is that someone tampered with the Jeep. Someone cut that wire to make the car go off the cliff, empty, a staged accident, to make it look like Leah crashed and wandered off into the woods. But if that's true, where is Leah? Let's apply some logic here. If Leah crashed the Jeep accidentally and survived, she would have been injured, disoriented. It's March in the Cascades, it's cold, it's remote, the nearest road is miles away. She hangs the blankets to stay warm. She waits for help, but help doesn't come. Eventually, she tries to hike out. She gets lost. She succumbs to exposure. But if that's the case, where's the body? Search teams combed the area. Cadaver dogs were brought in. Nothing. If Leah staged her own disappearance, she could have cut the wire herself. She could have put the Jeep in neutral and let it roll off the embankment. She could have grabbed her essentials, leaving the money and the ring to make it look believable, and hiked out. But why? Why stage such an elaborate disappearance? And more importantly, why leave her mother's engagement ring? Leah's family said that ring was sacred to her. She would never willingly leave it behind. If someone else was involved, this is the darkest theory, and it's the one that keeps investigators up at night. Leah met someone, maybe at a gas station, maybe at a rest stop, maybe someone who seemed helpful, friendly. There's evidence to support this. A fingerprint was found under the hood of the Jeep. It didn't match Leah. It didn't match anyone in her family. It belonged to an unknown male. There's also a report, unconfirmed, that Leah was seen having lunch with a man at a restaurant in Bellingham, a man she called Barry. Who was Barry? Did Leah trust him? Did she accept his help when the Jeep broke down? Did he offer to fix the car, only to sabotage it? Or did he force her off the road entirely, stage the crash, and take her somewhere else? And then there's B, the kitten. Where is B? Cat food was in the car, but no cat. If Leah wandered off and died in the woods, what happened to the kitten? Did she take B with her? Did the cat escape and run into the forest? Or did someone else take the cat? It's a small detail, but it haunts me. Because if Leah left voluntarily, if she staged her disappearance, she would have taken B. She loved that cat, and if she died in the crash or shortly after, the cat would likely still be in the area, or its remains would have been found. But B vanished, just like Leah. Leah Roberts has been missing for over 24 years. In 2000, she was searching for something: peace, meaning, a connection to the spiritual clarity Jack Kerouac described in The Dharma Bums. She wanted to stand on Desolation Peak and feel small beneath the infinite sky. She wanted to find herself in the wilderness. Instead, the wilderness swallowed her whole. Here's what I think happened. I think Leah drove to the Cascades full of hope. She was young, she was grieving, she was searching, and I think she met someone. Maybe at the movie theater. Maybe at a gas station. Maybe on the side of the road when her Jeep broke down. I think that person seemed kind, helpful, safe, and I think that person hurt her. I think the crash was staged. I think the blankets were hung to buy time, to make it look like Leah survived and wandered off. But Leah didn't wander off. She was taken. And whoever took her left just enough evidence behind, the money, the ring, the cat food, to create a mystery instead of a clear crime. But here's the thing. I could be wrong. Maybe Leah did stage her disappearance. Maybe she's out there somewhere, living under a different name. Maybe she found her Desolation Peak. Maybe she's at peace. I hope that's true. I really do. But I don't think it is. Because Leah loved her family. She loved her friends. She loved her mother's ring. She loved B. And people who love that deeply don't just walk away and leave everything behind. So where is Leah Roberts? Is she buried in the dense forest of the Cascades, her bones hidden beneath decades of moss and ferns? Is she at the bottom of a river, swept away by the spring melt? Or is she somewhere else entirely, taken by someone who saw a young, vulnerable woman on a spiritual journey and decided to turn her dream into a nightmare? All we know for sure is this. On March 9, 2000, Leah Roberts left Raleigh, North Carolina with a kitten, a guitar, and a head full of Jack Kerouac. She drove 3,000 miles across the country, searching for meaning in the mountains. And on March 18, 2000, her Jeep was found at the bottom of a ravine. Wrecked, empty, abandoned, the blankets hung like curtains, the money scattered like clues. The ring waiting like a question mark. Leah wanted to find herself in the wilderness. Instead, she vanished into it. And the mountains, those ancient, silent mountains Kerouac wrote about, keep her secret still. Desolation Peak stands tall, beautiful, untouchable. And Leah Roberts is still out there, somewhere, lost in the Dharma, lost in the bums, lost in the endless, indifferent wild. February 9th, 2004. Amherst, Massachusetts. Maura Murray is 21 years old, and her life is imploding. She's a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts. On paper, she's got it together. She's smart. She's a track athlete. She's got a boyfriend in the Army. She's the kind of kid who seems destined for success, but if you look closer, if you peel back the surface, you'll see the cracks. A few days ago, she crashed her father's brand new Toyota. Just totaled it. She was borrowing it, and she wrecked it. Her dad, Fred, isn't happy. She's also dealing with something else. Credit card fraud charges. She used a stolen credit card number to order pizza. It's a small crime, but it's a crime. And it's hanging over her head. And then there's the boyfriend, Billy. He's stationed at Fort Sill in Oklahoma. Their relationship is rocky. There are rumors he's been unfaithful. There are rumors she's been unfaithful. It's messy. Maura is stressed, overwhelmed, and on February 9th, 2004, she makes a decision. She's leaving. Here's how we know she's planning something. That morning, she goes to her dorm room and starts packing. Not just throwing a few things in a bag, she's packing. Boxes on the bed, posters off the walls, like she's moving out, like she's not coming back. She emails her professors. She says there's been a death in the family. She needs to take a few days off. It's a lie. There's no death. Her family is fine. She withdraws almost all of her money from an ATM, $280. Not a huge amount, but for a broke college student, it's everything. And then she goes to a liquor store. She buys alcohol, Bailey's, Kahlua, vodka, a box of Franzia wine. She loads it all into her car, a black 1996 Saturn sedan, and she drives north, away from campus, away from her problems, away from everything. No one knows where she's going. She doesn't tell her friends, she doesn't tell her family. She just leaves. Her car is packed, her dorm is packed, she's running. But from what? Or toward what? We'll never know, because Maura Murray never made it to her destination. It's 7:27 p.m., Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. This is a dark, winding, two-lane road cutting through the White Mountains. It's February. It's freezing. There's snow on the ground. The roads are icy. Maura is driving east. She's been on the road for a few hours now. She's about 140 miles from Amherst, and then something happens. On a sharp curve called the Weathered Barn Curve, Maura's Saturn spins out. She loses control. The car slides off the road and crashes nose first into a snowbank. The airbags deploy. The windshield cracks. The car is stuck. But Maura is okay. She's not injured. She gets out of the car. Within minutes, a school bus driver named Butch Atwood comes around the corner. He sees the wrecked Saturn. He pulls over. Butch is a big guy, mid-40s, friendly. He walks up to Maura and asks if she's all right, if she needs help. Maura is shaken. She's standing by the car and she tells him she's fine. She says she's already called up AA. They're on the way. Butch knows this is a lie. There's no cell service on this stretch of Route 112. It's a dead zone. She couldn't have called anyone, but Butch doesn't push it. He tells her he's going to call the police just to be safe. Maura begs him not to. She pleads with him. Please, don't call the police. But Butch can see she's been drinking. There's a box of wine spilled on the passenger seat. He knows she's in trouble. He says, "I'm sorry, but I have to." And he walks back to his house, about 100 yards down the road, and calls 911. Here's the thing. Butch stays on his porch. He's watching the car. He's got a clear view of the Saturn from his house. He sees Maura moving around the vehicle, opening the trunk, grabbing something. But then, he goes inside to talk to his wife, just for a moment, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3. And when he looks back out the window, Maura is gone. At 7:46 p.m., just 7 to 10 minutes after the crash, Sergeant Cecil Smith of the Haverhill Police arrives on the scene. The Saturn is there, locked, keys gone, airbags deployed. There's a box of Franzia wine spilled on the seat. There's a Coke bottle on the floor, filled with red liquid, probably more wine, but there's no Maura. Sergeant Smith looks around. He checks the woods. He calls out. Nothing. He radios for backup. Other officers arrive. They search the area. They shine flashlights into the trees. They walk the road. No sign of her. And here's the detail that makes this case so impossible. There are no footprints. Let's stop and think about this, because nothing about this disappearance makes sense. First, the footprints. There's snow on the ground, not deep but enough, fresh snow, the kind that holds prints. If Maura ran into the woods, if she fled the scene to avoid a DUI, she would have left footprints, clear, obvious footprints. But police searched the immediate area, the woods, the roadsides, the ditches. There were no footprints leading away from the car. So how did she leave? Did she float? Second, the scent dogs. A few days later, search teams brought in cadaver dogs, trained tracking dogs that can follow a scent for miles. The dogs picked up Maura's scent at the car. They followed it about 100 yards east, down the road. And then, the scent just stopped. Not faded, not lost in the woods. It stopped in the middle of the road. Dog handlers say this means one thing. She got into a vehicle, someone picked her up, and she drove away. But who and why? Third, the rag in the tailpipe. This is the detail that feels like a glitch in the matrix. When police examined the Saturn, they found a white rag stuffed deep into the tailpipe. Why? Blocking a tailpipe is dangerous. It can cause carbon monoxide to back up into the car. It can stall the engine. It makes no sense. But Maura's father, Fred Murray, later explained it. He said he'd told Maura that if her car was smoking, the Saturn had mechanical issues, she should stuff a rag in the tailpipe to hide the smoke, to avoid getting pulled over. Okay, that's an explanation, but it's a weird explanation. because shoving a rag in the tailpipe doesn't fix a smoking car. It just masks the symptom. And it can make things worse. So was Maura trying to restart the car? Was she planning to drive away and avoid the police? Or, and this is darker, did someone else put the rag there? To disable the car? To force her to stay put? We don't know. But the rag feels wrong. It feels staged. Fourth, the tandem driver theory. This is one of the most popular theories, and honestly, it makes the most sense. The theory goes like this. Maura wasn't traveling alone. She had a second car following her, a friend, a lover, someone. When she crashed, the second driver, who was ahead of her or behind her, circled back. They stopped. Maura grabbed her stuff, got in the second car, and they drove off. This explains the lack of footprints. This explains the scent stopping in the middle of the road. This explains how she vanished in 7 minutes. But here's the problem. If Maura left voluntarily with someone she trusted, why hasn't she surfaced in 20 years? Why hasn't she called her family? Why hasn't she accessed her bank account? Why hasn't she been spotted? And more importantly, why the crash? If she was running away with someone, why crash the car? Why create a scene? Unless the crash was an accident, unless Maura was driving drunk, lost control, and the tandem driver had to improvise. But even that doesn't explain the silence, the total, absolute silence for 2 decades. Fifth, the opportunistic abduction. This is the theory no one wants to believe, but it's possible. Maura crashes. She's alone. She's scared. She's been drinking. She doesn't want the police to show up. So she starts walking east down Route 112, trying to put distance between herself and the crash site. And then a car pulls up, a local, someone who lives in the area. They offer her a ride. Maura, desperate and drunk, accepts. And that person, that stranger, hurts her, kills her, hides her body somewhere in the dense New Hampshire wilderness. This theory explains the scent stopping. It explains the lack of footprints. It explains why she's never been found. But it requires a massive stroke of bad luck. It requires Maura to crash at exactly the wrong place, at exactly the wrong time, and to be picked up by exactly the wrong person. And yet, bad luck happens. Maura Murray has been missing for 20 years. Her case has become the most obsessed over disappearance on the internet. There are podcasts, documentaries, forums. Armchair detectives have spent thousands of hours analyzing every detail, every timeline, every witness statement, and we're no closer to the truth. Here's what we know for sure. On February 9th, 2004, Maura Murray packed up her dorm room, lied to her professors, withdrew her money, and drove north into the mountains. At 7:27 p.m., she crashed her car on Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. At 7:46 p.m., just 19 minutes later, police arrived, and Maura was gone. In those 19 minutes, in that impossibly narrow window of time, Maura Murray stepped off the face of the earth. I think about Butch Atwood a lot, about what it must have been like to talk to Maura, to see her standing there, scared and shaking, begging him not to call the police, and then to look away for just a moment, and turn back to find her gone, like she was never there at all. So what happened to Maura Murray? Did she run into the woods and succumb to the cold? If so, where's the body? Search teams have combed those woods for years. Did she get into a car with someone she knew? If so, why the silence? Why abandon her family? Did she get into a car with a stranger? If so, where is she now? Buried in the forest? At the bottom of a river? Or, and this is the theory that keeps me up at night, did she stage the whole thing? Did she crash the car deliberately, knowing someone was coming to pick her up? Did she want to disappear? And if so, why? What was she running from? What demons were chasing her that were so bad she had to vanish completely? All we have are questions, and a black Saturn sedan, stuck in a snowbank, airbags deployed, rag in the tailpipe, and a 21-year-old nursing student who walked into the darkness of a February night and never came back. Route 112 is still there. The weathered barn curve is still there. The snowbanks still pile up every winter. But Maura is gone, and the only witnesses, the trees, the snow, the cold, indifferent mountains, aren't talking. For 7 minutes she was there, and then she wasn't. and that's all we'll ever know. August 23rd, 1992. Interstate 80, near LaSalle, Illinois. It's a Sunday afternoon, late summer. The kind of day where the heat rises off the asphalt in waves and the air smells like hot tar and exhaust. I-80 is one of the main arteries of America. It stretches from New York to California, cutting straight through the heartland. On a Sunday in August, it's packed. Families returning from vacations, truckers hauling freight, college kids heading back to school. It feels safe because it's public, because there are witnesses everywhere, because help is always just a phone call away. And on this particular Sunday, 21-year-old Tammy Zawicki is driving west on I-80, heading back to college. Tammy is everything you'd want in a daughter. She's smart, athletic, responsible. She's a senior at Grinnell College in Iowa, majoring in finance. She's a soccer player. She's the yearbook photographer. She's close with her family, especially her younger brother, who she just dropped off at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. That was this morning. She helped him move into his dorm, hugged him goodbye, and got back on the road. Her plan is simple. Drive west on I-80, cross into Iowa, and be back at Grinnell by evening. It's a straight shot, maybe 200 miles, 3 hours, tops. She's done this drive before. She knows the route. She's cautious. She's capable. And most importantly, she's not alone. I-80 in the middle of the day is one of the busiest stretches of highway in the country. There are cars everywhere, trucks everywhere, witnesses everywhere. Nothing bad can happen here, right? Somewhere between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m., Tammy's car starts to overheat. She's driving a white 1985 Pontiac T1000. It's a small, boxy hatchback. Reliable, mostly, but it's old, and on this hot August day, the engine starts to struggle. The temperature gauge climbs. Steam starts hissing from under the hood. Tammy does exactly what you're supposed to do. She pulls over to the shoulder of the highway, near mile marker 83, just outside the town of LaSalle. She pops the hood. She gets out of the car. She stands there, waiting, and dozens, maybe hundreds of people see her. Let me describe what witnesses reported. A young woman, early 20s, athletic build, blonde hair, standing by a white Pontiac with the hood up. She's not waving frantically. She's not running into traffic. She's just standing there, calmly, waiting for someone to stop and help, and someone does. Multiple witnesses report seeing a semi-truck pulled over on the shoulder just ahead of Tammy's car. A tractor trailer with a distinctive paint job. Some describe it as having a faded orange stripe or diagonal stripes along the side. And they see a man, a white male, mid-30s to early 40s, tall, dark, bushy hair. He's standing next to Tammy, talking to her. To everyone driving by, it looks completely normal. It looks like a truck driver stopped to help a stranded motorist. It looks like a good Samaritan doing the right thing. So nobody stops. Nobody calls the police. Nobody thinks twice about it. Why would they? This is America in 1992. Truckers help people. That's what they do. Later that afternoon, around 5 p.m., an Illinois state trooper is patrolling I-80. He sees the white Pontiac on the shoulder. The hood is down now. The car looks abandoned. He pulls over to check it out. The doors are locked. He peers through the windows. Tammy's personal belongings are inside. Her purse, her wallet, her keys are gone, but everything else is there. He runs the plates. The car belongs to Tammy Zawicki, a college student from New Jersey. He calls it in. He has the car ticketed and towed. And that's it. Just another abandoned vehicle, probably a breakdown. Probably the owner got a ride and will come back for it later, except Tammy never comes back. Her family starts to worry when she doesn't arrive at Grinnell that night. She's supposed to check in with her parents. She always does. She's responsible like that. But the phone doesn't ring. Hours pass. Her roommates call her parents. Tammy didn't show up. Her parents call the police. The police find the car, the towed, abandoned Pontiac, and they realize Tammy Zawicki is missing. Now, this is where it gets horrifying. Because the timeline is tight. Tammy was seen standing by her car between 3 and 4 p.m. The car was found abandoned by 5 p.m. That means she was taken in broad daylight on one of the busiest highways in America, with hundreds of witnesses driving by, and nobody saw anything wrong. Let that sink in. Because this case completely shatters the myth of safety in numbers. We're taught from childhood, if you break down, stay with your car, wait for help, someone will stop. But what if the person who stops is the predator? The witnesses described a man standing with Tammy, talking to her, not dragging her, not holding a weapon, just talking. And then she was gone. So what happened in those minutes? Here's what investigators believe. The truck driver pulled over. He offered to help. Tammy, trusting and polite, accepted. Maybe he said, "Hop in the cab. I'll give you a ride to the next town. You can call a tow truck." Or maybe he said, "Let me take a look at your engine. I'm a mechanic." And Tammy, responsible, cautious Tammy, made a decision. She trusted him. She got into that truck. And once she was inside, the door closed. The truck pulled back onto I-80. And in the noise and chaos of highway traffic, no one noticed. No one saw a struggle. No one heard a scream. Because there was no struggle. There was no scream. Just a girl who trusted the wrong person. Now, here's the logic gap that drives investigators insane. If this was a crime of opportunity, if the truck driver saw a stranded girl and decided to abduct her, why leave her car on the shoulder? Why not push it off the road? Why not vandalize it? Why not steal her purse and make it look like a robbery? Instead, he carefully closed the hood. He locked the doors. He left her belongings inside. He made it look like she got a ride and would be coming back. That's not impulsive. That's calculated. That's a predator who knows how to cover his tracks. And then there's the truck. Multiple witnesses described it. A semi-truck with distinctive markings, a faded orange stripe, diagonal stripes, some kind of older model tractor trailer. The FBI launched a massive investigation. They contacted trucking companies. They pulled records. They searched parking lots and way stations. They interviewed thousands of truck drivers. And they never found it. How does an 18-wheeler just disappear? One theory is that the truck belonged to an independent operator, a guy who owned his own rig. No company, no GPS, no electronic logs. Just a lone driver hauling freight from town to town, invisible to the system. Another theory is that the truck was repainted shortly after the abduction, that the distinctive stripes were painted over, that the evidence was literally erased. But even then, trucks don't just vanish. Someone, somewhere, knows what happened to that truck, and they've kept quiet for 32 years. 9 days later, September 1992, Tammy's body is found. A highway maintenance worker is clearing brush along I-44 in Missouri, about 500 miles southwest of where Tammy was abducted. He finds something, a blanket, wrapped around something. It's Tammy. She's been stabbed multiple times. Her body is wrapped tightly in the blanket and bound with duct tape. She's been there for days. The medical examiner determines she didn't die immediately. She was held captive for some period of time before she was killed. This wasn't a quick crime. This wasn't a panicked murder. This was possession. This was control. The killer took her, kept her, and when he was done, he dumped her body 500 miles away and kept driving. Let's talk about the suspect. In the years after Tammy's murder, investigators looked at several long-haul truckers, serial killers who used the interstate system as their hunting ground. One name kept coming up: Bruce Mendenhall. Mendenhall was a truck driver from Kentucky. In 2007, he was arrested for the murder of a woman in Tennessee. When police searched his truck, they found what they called a murder kit, a duffel bag containing knives, duct tape, plastic sheeting, and photographs of women. He was eventually linked to multiple murders along I-40 and I-65. But investigators could never definitively connect him to Tammy Zawicki. The timelines didn't quite match. The DNA evidence was inconclusive. Other suspects have been investigated over the years, truck drivers with violent histories, men who were spotted near the scene. But no one has ever been charged. Tammy's case remains unsolved. Here's what haunts me about this case. Tammy did everything right. She pulled over safely, she stayed with her car, she waited for help, and help came. But the help was the predator, and there was no way for her to know, because he didn't look dangerous. He looked like every other truck driver on I-80. He looked normal. And that's the nightmare of this case. Because if Tammy, smart, Cautious, responsible Tammy couldn't tell the difference between a good Samaritan and a killer. How can any of us? Think about the witnesses, the dozens of people who drove by that afternoon. They saw Tammy, they saw the truck, they saw the man, and they assumed everything was fine. Because it looked fine. But it wasn't fine. It was a kidnapping in progress, happening in broad daylight on a busy interstate in front of hundreds of people. And nobody stopped it, because nobody knew. I think about Tammy's last moments a lot, about what it must have been like to stand on that shoulder, watching cars fly by at 70 miles per hour and see a truck pull over. Did she feel relief? Did she think, thank God someone stopped? Did she smile at the driver? Did she say, thank you so much for stopping? And at what point did she realize she'd made a mistake? Was it when the truck didn't stop at the next town? Was it when the door locked? Was it when she saw the duct tape? Or did she never realize at all? Did she trust him until the very end? Tammy Zawicki was taken on August 23, 1992. Her body was found on September 1st, 1992. For 9 days, she was alive, somewhere, in the back of a truck, moving across state lines, invisible to the world, and then she was gone. Her killer is still out there, maybe retired now, maybe still driving, maybe he's killed others, maybe Tammy was the only one. We'll probably never know, but here's what we do know. On a sunny Sunday afternoon in 1992, surrounded by witnesses, Tammy Zawicki was erased from the world, and it changed everything. It changed the way women look at stranded cars on the highway. It changed the way we think about accepting help from strangers. It changed the way we teach our daughters to navigate the world. Because Tammy's case proved something terrifying. You can do everything right. You can be cautious. You can be smart. You can be surrounded by people, and it still won't save you. Interstate 80 is still there. Mile marker 83 is still there. Cars still break down on that stretch of highway. And every time a young woman pulls over with her hood up waiting for help, I think of Tammy. And I wonder, is the next car that stops a good Samaritan or a predator? We never know, not until it's too late. And that's the legacy of Tammy Zawicki. A reminder that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like help. April 9th, 1997, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Judy Smith is about to take a trip, a simple, straightforward trip, the kind married couples take all the time. Her husband, Jeffrey, is a lawyer from Newton, Massachusetts, just outside Boston. He's been invited to a legal conference in Philadelphia. It's a work thing, boring probably, but Judy decides to come along. Why not? Philadelphia is a beautiful city. History everywhere. Independence Hall, the Liberty Bell, great restaurants. It'll be a nice little getaway. Judy is 50 years old, a registered nurse, a mother of 2 grown children. She's grounded, responsible, the kind of person who doesn't do anything impulsive. But there's a strange detail right at the beginning of this trip, a detail that, in hindsight, feels like a warning. Judy and Jeffrey are at Logan Airport in Boston, about to board their flight to Philadelphia. And Judy realizes she forgot something, her driver's license, her ID. She left it at home. Now, for most people, this would just be annoying. You'd roll your eyes, maybe borrow your spouse's credit card, and figure it out later. But Judy doesn't do that. She leaves the airport. She flies back home, literally gets on a shuttle or drives back, retrieves the license, and then returns to the airport to meet Jeffrey. It's out of character. It's obsessive. It delays the trip. Her family later said this wasn't like Judy. She was careful, yes, but not to the point of derailing an entire trip over a driver's license. Was she already anxious? Was something bothering her? Was this the beginning of a mental break? We don't know. But she makes it back to the airport. She boards the flight. She and Jeffrey land in Philadelphia without incident, and they check into the Doubletree Hotel in downtown Philly. Everything seems fine. April 10th, 1997, morning, Jeffrey has to attend his conference. It's an all-day thing. Panels, lectures, networking, the usual. Judy isn't interested. She's not a lawyer. So she tells Jeffrey she's going to spend the day sightseeing. She has a plan. Independence Hall, the Liberty Bell. Maybe grab lunch at Reading Terminal Market. Standard tourist stuff. Jeffrey kisses her goodbye and heads downstairs to the conference hall. And that's the last time he sees her. When Jeffrey returns to the hotel room that evening, around 6 p.m., Judy isn't there. At first, he's not worried. Maybe she's still out sightseeing. Maybe she stopped for dinner. But hours pass, 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Jeffrey starts calling. He calls the hotel desk. He calls local hospitals. He calls the police. No sign of Judy. By the next morning, a missing persons report is filed. The police start investigating. And here's what they find. Not much. There are a few reported sightings, unconfirmed, vague, and contradictory. One witness claims to have seen a woman matching Judy's description at the Greyhound bus station in Philadelphia. She looked disoriented, confused. Another report places a woman resembling Judy in the Kensington neighborhood, a rough, drug-plagued area of Philly. She was allegedly acting strange. Some reports say she was seen speaking in tongues, behaving erratically, but none of these sightings are confirmed. No one got a photo. No one called the police in the moment. Judy Smith simply vanished from the middle of a major American city. Her husband is devastated. Her children are frantic. The police are baffled. Where do you even start looking for a 50-year-old nurse who disappears from a hotel in downtown Philadelphia? They search the city. They interview witnesses. They check bus stations, train stations, hospitals, morgues. Nothing. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. And then, in September 1997, 5 months after Judy disappeared, something impossible happens. September 7th, 1997, Pisgah National Forest, North Carolina. 2 hunters are walking through the dense woods near Asheville, North Carolina. They're deep in the forest, miles from the nearest road, and they find something. A shallow grave, barely covered, and in it, skeletal remains. The remains are sent to the medical examiner. Dental records confirm the identity. It's Judy Smith. Now, let's pause here, because the discovery of Judy's body doesn't solve the mystery. It makes it worse. Asheville, North Carolina is 600 miles from Philadelphia. 600 miles. That's not a short distance. That's a 9 to 10 hour drive. That's 3 states away. How does a 50-year-old woman who disappears from a hotel in Philadelphia end up dead in a forest in North Carolina? And here's where it gets truly strange. The clothing. When Judy disappeared on April 10, 1997, she was wearing typical tourist clothes, a white shirt, slacks, comfortable shoes for walking around the city. When her remains were found in September, she was wearing completely different clothes: hiking boots, thermal underwear, heavy outdoor gear, the kind of clothes you wear when you're planning to spend time in the mountains. Her husband, Jeffrey, was shown these items. He said, "We don't own these clothes." Judy didn't pack hiking gear. She wasn't planning a trip to the mountains. She was planning to see the Liberty Bell. So where did these clothes come from? Did she buy them? If so, when and why? Did someone give them to her? If so, who? Or, and this is darker, did someone dress her in these clothes after she was dead? And then there's the backpack. Judy's body was found with a blue and black backpack next to her. Jeffrey was asked, "Do you recognize this backpack?" He said, "No, we don't own a blue backpack." Inside the backpack were a few items, $167 in cash, her wedding ring, a diamond ring that Jeffrey had given her, a ring she cherished, a pair of expensive Bolle sunglasses, high-end, not cheap. Now, let's think about this logically. If Judy was robbed and murdered, the killer would take the cash. They'd take the diamond ring, they'd take the sunglasses, but they didn't. They left everything. So this wasn't a robbery. And if Judy was running away, if she'd voluntarily left her husband and started a new life, why would she end up dead in the woods 5 months later, still carrying her wedding ring? It doesn't make sense. And here's the detail that keeps me up at night: the sunglasses. Jeffrey said those sunglasses didn't belong to Judy. She didn't own them. He'd never seen them before. So whose sunglasses are they? Were they a gift from someone she met? Were they purchased by Judy during her missing period? Or did they belong to her killer? Because if they belonged to the killer, if he accidentally left them with her body, then that's evidence, that's a clue, that's DNA. But as far as we know, those sunglasses have never led anywhere. So what happened to Judy Smith? Let's talk theories, because this case has generated dozens of them, and almost none of them make complete sense. Theory 1. The dissociative fugue. This is the most popular explanation, and honestly, it's the only one that begins to account for the geographical impossibility of this case. A dissociative fugue is a rare psychological condition where a person suddenly loses their sense of identity. They forget who they are, they forget their life, and they just start traveling. People in fugue states have been known to travel hundreds or even thousands of miles. They take buses, they hitchhike, they wander. The theory goes, Judy experienced a fugue state, possibly triggered by stress, grief, or an undiagnosed mental health issue. She left the hotel in a daze. She walked to the Greyhound station, hence the sighting. She bought a ticket, she got on a bus, and she ended up in Asheville, North Carolina. Why Asheville? We don't know. Maybe it was random. Maybe she saw a sign and it resonated with her on some subconscious level. Once in Asheville, disoriented and vulnerable, she met someone. Maybe someone who seemed kind, who offered to help, who gave her hiking clothes and took her into the mountains. And then that person killed her. But here's the problem with the fugue theory. Fugue states are rare, and they usually resolve within hours or days, not months. Judy was missing for 5 months. If she was in a fugue state that entire time, she would have been wandering, confused, visible. And yet, there are no confirmed sightings of her outside of Philadelphia. No one in Asheville remembers seeing a disoriented middle-aged woman. No hotels, no shelters, no police reports. So either Judy was incredibly good at staying invisible, or something else happened. Theory 2. Voluntary disappearance. Some people believe Judy left her husband on purpose, that she was unhappy, that she wanted to start a new life. The forgotten ID incident at the airport, a sign of her anxiety about the trip or about her marriage. The trip to Asheville, planned, intentional. Maybe she'd been planning it for weeks. Maybe she had a secret lover. Maybe she wanted to disappear into the mountains and live off the grid. But then, why the death? Why the shallow grave? If Judy left voluntarily and she was happy in her new life, who killed her? And why? And again, why leave the cash and the ring? If you're starting over, you need money. You need resources. This theory has too many holes. Theory 3. Abduction and murder. This is the darkest theory, but it might be the most plausible. Judy left the hotel on April 10th. She was at the Greyhound station. The sighting is credible. Maybe she was trying to catch a bus. Maybe she was lost and asking for directions. And someone saw her. A predator. Someone who recognized vulnerability. They approached her. They seemed helpful. They offered her a ride. Maybe they said, "I'm heading to Asheville. I can give you a lift." Judy, confused or trusting, accepted. And that person took her to the mountains, gave her the hiking clothes, either to make her comfortable or to stage a scene. And then they killed her. The cash and the ring were left to make it look like she'd wandered into the woods on her own, to make it look like an accident or a suicide. But the stab wounds tell a different story. Judy Smith was murdered. Judy Smith went to Philadelphia to see the Liberty Bell. And she ended up in a shallow grave in North Carolina, 600 miles away, wearing clothes she didn't own, carrying a backpack that wasn't hers, and sunglasses no one can explain. It's a case that feels like a glitch in reality. A story where the geography doesn't work, where the timeline doesn't work, where nothing works. I think about Jeffrey a lot, about what it must have been like to kiss his wife goodbye that morning, expecting to see her at dinner, and then spending the next 5 months searching for her, and then getting the call. The terrible, impossible call. We found her in North Carolina. North Carolina? What was she doing in North Carolina? And the answer is, we don't know. Judy Smith's case remains unsolved. No one has ever been charged with her murder. Somewhere out there, someone knows what happened. Someone knows why Judy got on that bus. Someone knows who gave her those clothes. Someone knows whose sunglasses those were. And they've kept quiet for 27 years. All we know is this. On April 10th, 1997, Judy Smith left her hotel in Philadelphia to go sightseeing. And 5 months later, she was found dead in the mountains of North Carolina, dressed like a hiker carrying a stranger's things. She teleported. Not in the science fiction sense, but in the sense that her journey, her path from point A to point B, is completely invisible to us. She walked out of a hotel, and she ended up 600 miles away. And the only witnesses, the trees, the mountains, the grave, aren't talking.